Hey there, boys and girls. Mr. Remedies back from my top secret headquarters with another reading mini lesson. Today, we're still continuing to practice our good summarizing skills. We're developing our skills in summarizing, paraphrasing, and retelling some important information from the text we read. Guys, I can't tell you how important these skills are in everyday life. Not just reading class, but in science class, math class. When you guys get out years and years from now and you finally get jobs, you'll be able to summarize a report you read to your boss. Boom. You do that correctly, it's going to change your life. So today we're chugging right along with that skill development. Today we're determining what's most important when summarizing. As always, we have some learning goals, success criteria to point us in the right direction. So let's check those out now. Our learning goal is that we are learning how to identify important ideas within a text in order to summarize that text. Okay? Super important skill to determine what exactly is going to go into our summary. Along the way, we have some 3 success criteria for you. First, if you can say to yourself, I can identify important information within a text, you're on the right track. Second, you'll be able to say to yourself, I can distinguish between main ideas and details. Super important. Super duper, uber duper important. And number 3, I can determine an idea to be most important using text evidence, which is always what we want to be using. We always want to use text evidence to support our ideas. All right. Along the way, we can hit these 3. Boom. You'll be the newly elected mayor of Success Town because we'll have met our goal. So let's move on to talking about the differences between main ideas and details. I think that's an important thing to discuss because sometimes it trips you guys up. So remember, main ideas versus details. Here are some differences because I think some kiddos get a little confused sometimes. Main ideas are broad statements or messages, while details are very specific statements, usually including some fact, some statistic, usually some very, very specific information in that statement. Main ideas can be found in headings, topic sentences, or introductions, whether that introduction is at the beginning of a section, the beginning of a chapter, or the beginning of any story or text. Whereas details are found in the bodies of paragraphs, chapters, or sections. They're found in the middle of those things. And so it is very important, boys and girls, children of all ages, mostly in the 4th grade, that we understand the difference between a main idea and a detail. Right? Now that we have that difference hammered out, let's look at a specific strategy in determining what is most important. To do that, we're going to ask ourselves what's most important and to whom is it important to. So this strategy involves 2 people. It involves us, the reader, and it involves the author. So what do you, the reader, think is the most important idea? Then we're going to ask ourselves, what does the author think the most important idea is? And so we're going to look at an example from a book we've seen numerous times recently, and then we're going to tear this strategy apart and really go step by step on what this entails. To do that, we're going to go over to Epic. We're going to take a gander at Chapter 3 from How Can We Reduce Household Waste? And we're going to really dive in and see how the strategy shakes out. All right, guys, we're here, getepic.com, Chapter 3, talking about food waste and yard waste. So I'm going to read the selection for you guys. I will not be reading any of the captions or text features, but they're on the screen for you. And as always, I highly recommend that we read those. Okay. So Chapter 3, food waste and yard waste. Food and plant materials make up another quarter of the trash in the United States. Food waste is all of the food people throw out. It includes meal scraps and food that went bad before it could be eaten. Plant waste usually comes from the yard. It includes grass clippings, leaves, and branches. In the United States, farmers produce more than 590 billion pounds of food every year. But Americans waste between 1/4 and 1/2 of that food. Farmers sometimes let fruits and vegetables rot on fields. They often do this when the food is not in ideal shape or color because this makes it harder to sell. Stores throw away a lot of food too. They want customers to have plenty of choices, so they stock more food than they plan to sell. They also get rid of many foods that do not look perfect. People waste a lot of food at home as well. Families often fail to use their food before it goes bad, and many people buy more food than they can use. When food and yard waste ends up in landfills, it rots. This creates methane, a powerful greenhouse gas. Methane contributes to climate change. And we're going to stop there. I just want to use this section as a way to illustrate the strategy that we're talking about today. So let's head on over back to our PowerPoint and let's really look at the steps of our strategy. So after we get done reading a text, I highly recommend your teachers in the classroom may actually require you to, but it's a pretty awesome idea to get you a piece of paper, divided into two columns or separated into some way. And then again, ask yourself, what's most important and to whom is it important to? So you can see in column 1, we have the reader. So I took a look at this. I read it pretty quick. I read it to myself again during editing. And I decided that for this section that I think the main idea, the most important idea is that food waste is all the food that people throw out. I used my good skill. I remember what my teacher told me in second or first grade, and they said that usually the topic sentence is somewhere close to the beginning of the paragraph. So I found out that food waste is all the food people throw out, so I think that is the most important idea of this section. However, I do want to look at some of the things that are presented to me and what the section says, and I want to try to come up with what the author thinks is most important. So in a separate column, I'm going to come up with what the author thinks is most important. The author thinks food and plant waste comes from many different sources. Now we're going to move on to the second step. So first step, write down what you think the reader, the most important idea is, and what you think the author thinks the most important idea is. Second thing is now we're going to continue to try to ask ourselves what details support your statement. Okay. I think the reader, I'm still in my same column here. There's a detail that says families throw out food when it goes bad or they buy too much food. Well, that supports the main idea that food waste is the food that people throw out. Okay, that supports it. Now I'm going to go to the second column. I'm going to go to the author. The author thinks food and plant waste comes from many different sources. And I'm going to look for details, remembering details are specific statements that help support that. So I found that all of these 4 support that. I found that plant waste usually comes from yards. That's a unique source. Farmers let plants rot because they can't sell them, so sometimes food waste comes from farms. Grocery stores throw out food when it goes bad or doesn't sell. Well, that's another source of food and plant waste. And families waste a lot of food too. So in this one, I see that I have families, grocery stores, farmers, and yards as different sources. So now the next step would be to count the details that support each idea. So I come over here to the reader column. Hold on a second, I gotta count. Ooh, that's a lot. Ooh, it looks like 1. Boom, 1. So I have 1 detail that supports my idea that this is the most important idea. However, I have 4 details that support what I think the author is trying to tell me. Okay, so ding, 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 ding. The one with the most supporting details is the winner. This is what is the most important idea of the section, that food and plant waste comes from many different sources. Right? So now when I go to summarize, I'm going to use this idea in addition to some examples and some of the tricks and details that we learned about in our previous lesson. It's also worth noting here, boys and girls, that it is okay to be wrong. It is okay, as Mr. Remedies illustrates here, it's okay to not find very many details that support your idea. And I know that's a hard feeling for you guys. I know how awesome it feels when you get the main idea correct, and a lot of people want to be right, but sometimes, and quite often actually, the text doesn't support our ideas. And it's perfectly okay to put the work in to really determine that the author's message, what the author may think, may be supported by more details than what we think. Right? And so I really encourage you guys to work hard, don't skimp, don't slack on just finding enough details to make your idea the winner. Right? Because that's really shortchanging the author's message. It's going to give us inaccurate answers, and it's not really going to present a good work habit for us in the future. So I just really encourage you guys, put the work in. Don't be afraid to be wrong, because when you're wrong, you learn something, and that's what we're all about. All right, now that we have this down, let's move on to a review. Pow, Mr. Remedies back on your screen here. All right, so as a review, summaries always include the main idea of the text. We learned that yesterday, but it's always good to remind yourself of that. The main idea is the most important idea of the text. Okay? And a little how-to, 4 steps on how to find the main idea, just one strategy, and we'll talk about more later. First, write down what you think the main idea is. Number 2, write down what the author thinks the main idea is. 3, find facts to support both. And 4, count which idea has more supporting details. Whichever one has the most, boom, that's the main idea. All right, guys. I've been Mr. Remedies. This is one strategy for finding the main idea. We're going to keep talking about some ways to summarize and retell and paraphrase all week long. And I know that you guys are just going to do a bang-up job at that. All right? You guys are going to be amazing because you've already been amazing. And never forget that. I hope you never forget that. All right. You know who I've been from my secret hideout, my headquarters somewhere in Copperas Cove, Texas. I've been Mr. Remedies. You've been amazing. And we will see you down the line.